Good evening, everybody. It's your boy D Max. So let's talk. So I was just browsing through, just surfing through different sites and stuff like that, and something came up to me concerning all of the gun violence that's been taking place and all of the talks about gun control and all of these different things. Here in Texas, back in September of 2021, they passed a law that you could carry a gun in Texas without a license if you fall under the qualifications under the law. And there are certain qualifications that and criteria that you have to meet. And if you meet those criteria, then you are able to carry a weapon concealed or out in the open without a permit or license. And that's all over Texas. And so, at first everybody was alarmed and everybody was so upset about this. And then they came with their selective outrage. But then you began to see something. You began to see the that superiority that these guys felt by being out here with a weapon diminish. Because now this is the message that's being sent. You're not the only one out here that has a gun. You're not the only one out here who can raise that weapon up and let off some rounds. And so that diminishes this sense of superiority that these guys have when they're out here with these guns and stuff. Because if you're in a town where you got a majority of law-abiding citizens and nobody's really out carrying any guns or doing any types of activities like that, then they're going to be empowered. They're going to be able to intimidate a lot of people because they're going to catch them off guard. But if every time you turn around and you try to pull a gun on somebody, they have one as well, or somebody close by have one, grandma got one in her purse, that's going to diminish that sense of power that you thought you had, because most of them power is in their weapons. Outside of their weapons, if they put the weapons down, a majority of them really would not be about anything. They would not have, I'd say they wouldn't even have 80% of the boldness that they have with these weapons. And we see that they rely on those weapons and they act as though those weapons are a shield, like the gun can block a bullet or something. And a lot of them die because you see how they have gunfights. We've seen many videos about it. They just run out there in the open like this is Fortnite or something, and then they get popped. But here in Texas, like I said, we started to notice something. That sense of empowerment that the guys out in the streets, the criminals had, it was diminished significantly by now knowing in the back of their head, well, if I run up on somebody at this gas station trying to jack them for their vehicle, they very well may have a gun on them and they can shoot me, and it's in a stand your ground state, so they won't get charged with anything and I'll lose my life. So I have a little bit more to lose now, and I have to really think about this before I make this decision to go out here and commit this crime. And so it's starting to kind of curb some of the criminal activity that's been taking place. And so I just want to ask, is this a good idea to put guns into more people's hands so it diminishes this sense of empowerment and superiority that the criminals have by having a gun on them at all times? It's a very interesting concept. It's very dangerous to play with, and it also sends us back to a state of where we was in the Wild West. So we're repeating history, so to speak, by doing this. But is this going to be effective? Because you can't take guns. There's so many guns that are not listed and not on the market. So yeah, you can go and take all of the guns from the law-abiding people, but trying to get the guns from the criminals, let's be realistic. The only way they're going to do that is if they do more raids in these criminal areas, more car pulling people over, and that's going to lead to more police brutality and more profiling on racial status and stuff like that. So we don't want to go that route. That route has been problematic, and we've been seeing that for a long time. And so now I'm thinking that this route that Texas is taking, with making sure that the law-abiding citizens are able to arm themselves and protect themselves from these criminals that they're not able to get these weapons away from. And this kind of levels the playing field, because you're not just sitting here with a city full of helpless people who can't protect themselves and have to wait for the police to be reactive instead of proactive. No, you have people who will, like I said, grandma got it in her purse and she don't mind pulling it and letting it go. And if she have to, then so be it. There was just a story recently about a young man who tried to run up on this guy at a gas station and was shot and killed. He jumped in the guy's car, was what he did. He tried to rob him. The guy pulled his gun. The dude jumped in the guy's vehicle. He shot him a couple times, and then he kind of rode off before he eventually bled out. And they found him dead in the vehicle just a few hundred meters down the street. And so there was also another. There was a mass shooting that was about to take place at a mall. I forgot what state it was in, but this was like last week sometime, and the shooter was intercepted by a civilian who happened to be carrying a weapon, and he took him out before he was able to exact any terror on anybody in that shopping mall. And so now we're starting to see more and more that we have citizens out here, responsible citizens who carry, and not only carry, but they go to the gun range. So when they shoot, they're not just shooting any and everywhere. They're making sure that they hit their exact target so that they're not having any casualties, any stray bullets catching innocent bystanders. So we have this. We have this in our ministries and churches. You're starting to see more and more gun owners um, taking up arms and protecting their ministries. This is a reality of today, in the environment and climate that we live in. You know, and we understand that God is our protector and He's our provider and all of that, but He also gave us the ability to protect ourselves. And, just allowing people to come up in there and taking lives is not conducive to our environment. So there has to be some changes made in this country. Is the rest of the country going to follow suit? We see Chicago. If Chicago was in back in the wild western days, then it would be considered Dodge City. That's exactly what Chicago would be considered. Now, there was a report a few years ago, so I'll use the term allegedly because I don't know how valid this source was. But they stated that in Chicago there was a conspiracy to leave a vehicle, just somebody, random person, go out there and park a vehicle, leave a leave a bunch of guns in the vehicle and leave it unlocked and just desert the vehicle. And once they desert the vehicle, they know that somebody's gonna see it as an opportunity. They run up in there. Not only do they steal the car, but they've got a whole bunch of guns now. And these guns are, where do they come from? Who intentionally are leaving these guns in these black neighborhoods in Chicago? And I hope it's not true, but I wouldn't put anything past the people of this country who are trying to make America great again. Um, So this is just another example of where we are as a people in this country. This is another example of, that Wild West mentality. And we know that they really, really got that Wild West mentality in Chicago. These guys walking up on each other and it's on sight. The only thing that's missing is the duel. Their duel is not like it used to be. They don't stand out in the middle of the street. Everybody wait for everybody to clear the sidewalks and get in the house and get in a safe place so that they can have a one-on-one duel. They don't do it like that no more. No. It's when they see each other, they're scary. They roll the window down in the car and shoot all the bullets out of their gun, just hoping that they hit somebody. That's the game now. That's the strategy now. They run up on a crowd of people and just dump bullets into the crowd, hoping that they hit somebody that's close to or either the op that they was aiming at. That's the strategy now. And so the Wild West mentality is been amped up. It's on steroids right now. And so when you take that environment and they know that everybody in that environment, even the law abiding citizens, have protection, how is that going to play out? Yeah, we're definitely going to have some gruesome shootouts. We're definitely going to have some situations where the good side doesn't win and they don't win in every outcome. We're going to have some situations where they do win. But all in all, it gives everybody a level playing field because just the reality is you're not going to be able to get all of the guns off of the streets. That's just period point blank. Like I said, you would be able to only get the guns from those law abiding citizens who are gun owners because you have that documented and you'd be able to track that down. But all of those undocumented, unmarked, stolen weapons that are floating around on the black market and floating around in these different communities, you're not going to be able to get your hands on those. And so that's just giving the enemy and the criminals the upper hand. So we're not trying to live that type of life. And that's why people are fighting for gun rights. That's why people are making a stand because they don't want to be left holding the short end of the stick when all is said and done. These criminals out here have some really, really high tech weaponry. They've got military grade weaponry. And so if I'm going to stand any type of chance, not only against them, but against the tyrannical government, which we starting to see formulate in the United States, and that concept and mindset is being backed by a whole bunch of people. So it's not going to die out or go away. So this is something that we definitely have to take into consideration now. This is something that the forefathers of this country was thinking about during that time. That's why they put the Second Amendment in there in the first place, because they understood that at some point in America's time that we were going to come to this place where we're at now, to where we are not certain about our government's intent for us, and we feel the need to protect ourselves and not leave it in the government's hands because they seem to want to hurt us more than they want to help us. And so the government, the forefathers of this country and people way all those hundreds of years ago understood this was going to happen. And so that's why they put a safeguard in the Constitution for us to have that right. And that's why we'll continue to fight for that right, because it's necessary. It's necessary against these domestic terrorists that we have to go up against daily as we step out our door. It's necessary against any foreign invaders, any sleeper cells that are in our country that are just waiting for an opportunity to attack. It is necessary for us to protect ourselves against, like I said before, a tyrannical government who is trying to militarize the police force and use them against the people, which actually goes against the Constitution. So there's a whole lot of things that are at play, and there's a whole lot of things that are at stake whenever we talk about gun control and who's able to own guns and all of this stuff like this. We're not leaving this in the hands of these people who have failed us for all of these decades and all of these centuries. They've continuously failed the people over and over and over. So why would we continue to put our lives and our well-being in their hands? It's out of their hands. The people have spoken. And so when the people have spoken, then there has to be some action behind that. What does the action behind that look like? Well, that's not for me to say, because there are people all over this country who are forming their own little groups. I guess you could call them militias, and they're going out and they're procuring all of their weaponry that they need so that when the time comes, they're able to execute with precision. You see groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. That is exactly what they were prepared to do on January the 6th. We just heard radio conversations and recordings from these guys on that day. We've heard all of the radio back and forth with the Secret Service on that day, and what was taking place. And all of these little militia groups who were coordinated and organized, and they were networking with each other. And if they had a little bit more sense, then they would have been successful in what they were attempting to do. And so, with this type of mentality and with people already ahead of the game, I'm just saying that, maybe this is the route for the future. We're headed right back into the days of the Wild Wild West, everybody walking around with a gun on their hip. And so, I don't know. Is that the answer to the problem? I don't know. But getting rid of guns is never going to happen. This is something that America pushed on the people. They've heightened the fascination, and they've constantly improved and upgraded on these weapons. And they've given us all types of movies and all types of imagery to make this one of the greatest and the most exciting things in the world. And so now that you have people that are addicted to these weapons and all of this destruction, now they want to try to legislate what they've done to the people. And you can't legislate what's been done to the people. You can't legislate evil. If that was the case, then, it would have been legislated a long time ago, and we wouldn't have half the people in politics that we do have. But that's another conversation. So once again, you cannot legislate evil. And so the whole gun issue will continue to only be it will always just be a discussion. There'll never be any action on it. So anybody out there who's thinking that they're going to act on anything concerning taking away guns, it's not going to happen, because they understand that if they do, then people are going to just do what the criminals do. They're going to go to the black market and they're going to start to purchase their weapons illegally. You're not going to stop people from giving themselves that sense of security that is afforded to us by the Constitution. And to go back a little bit, I also want to speak on the wording in how Texas put this, because they said, okay, now you can carry a weapon, a handgun, without a license, but that's only if you fall under the criteria of the law. So what is the criteria that you have to fall under in Texas to be able to carry a weapon without a license? Well, you definitely cannot be a felon. You definitely cannot have severe mental health issues such as severe PTSD. You cannot have any domestic violence or any anger issue type charges, anything like that. No, is a no-go. So any type of violent past behavior coming from you, you're not going to be able to meet the qualifications. And so it's very, very strict, and it's very targeted towards certain people. And I'm not saying no color, because if your behavior and if your lifestyle afforded you to not get into any trouble on a significant level, then you qualify to be able to carry a weapon without a license, and that doesn't exclude any ethnicity. So uh, but that's just how it goes. And so they're saying that if you're a law-abiding citizen and you have your head on straight and you're just out here trying to live your life as peaceably as possible, and you want to protect yourself because you recognize what's going on in this world, then you have the right to do so. But if you're a type of person who's always making poor decisions in life, you're not the person that should have a weapon, because you've already demonstrated that you make poor decisions in life. And having a weapon is only going to boost up your it's going to boost up your ability to make poor decisions, because like I said, weapon takes a lot of your it takes a lot of your um what's the word I'm looking for, it takes a lot of your apprehension away. You know, a lot of time where if we go out there and we get into a squabble with somebody and we don't have any weapons on us and the odds look to seem to be against us, then we're going to think twice about running up into that situation, and we may back down. But if we have a weapon on us, regardless of what the odds are looking like, a lot of times that weapon is going to give us that false sense of security that's going to embolden us and make us step up into the situation, whereas before we would have backed out of it. You see what I'm saying? So um, it's definitely important to make that differentiation between who is qualified to carry a weapon in Texas and who's not, because it doesn't matter to the criminals. The criminals out here, they've already shown that they have a flawed character. They've already shown that, you know, they may be suffering from a lot of mental health issues, but they still carry weapons. You know, they're not doing it legally, but nonetheless, they're still carrying weapons out here, and they still have the ability to pull them at any given time. And they've got their weapons concealed. They can't carry them open because, you know, they're not licensed to, or they don't fall in the criteria to. So they got to keep it tucked. But when you got the person who's a law-abiding citizen who can carry that thing out on his hip for everybody to see, or he got that shoulder holster and you see that thing right there up under his armpit, you know, it make you think twice when you're in the store acting a fool. It make you think twice whenever you got that false sense of security that a lot of guys have when they run up in these stores and want to get loud and loud talk people and just act like they do sometimes. It'll curb that behavior because they understand that they can die just like somebody else can die. And I kind of agree with that. Some people may not, but I kind of agree with that. I can deal with that. That's fair. If you can't get rid of the weapons, then make it a level playing field for everybody. That's only fair. And we can go from there. We can work out the bugs from there. But then too, a lot of guns will be stolen. The more people who have these guns, they're gonna have them in their cars, and then people are gonna be desensitized to guns, and so the haphazardness and just laying their guns around. More children are going to pick these guns up and accidentally go off, and God forbid something happened to them. There are going to be more guns that are going to be stolen out of vehicles and out of homes. So there's a lot of backlash that can come with this. There's a lot of cons. So do the pros outweigh the cons in this situation? That's what we're going to have to see. And once we get to a conclusion, then we'll continue to go from there. But right now, no answer is the right or wrong answer in this situation. We are in a crisis. We're in a state of emergency, a state of distress. So that's all I really have to say on this, man. I just wanted to put this thought out there because it's something to really think about in this country, and the gun fanaticism that we are witnessing in the midst of all of the gun violence. It's amazing how, on one hand, they'll sit there and they'll just saturate the system with, violence and violence on top of violence. And then they'll turn around and talk about, oh, we need to stop the violence. If you want to stop the violence, stop with the imagery. That's where it starts. Quit trying to run to these kids first and trying to stop them whenever you're constantly pushing these images in their face and these influences in their face. What's that all about? That doesn't work. Start where the influence is. Start where the source is. That's when you're gonna get an end to, or you're gonna get a decrease in all of this violent activity. So until then, people need to pretty much close their mouth and get to work on dealing with the source, which is the imagery and the narratives that's being pushed out here for them to follow. But like I said, this is the end, man. I'm out of here. This is your boy D Mac. Y'all know what I say. Sticks and stones can break your bones, but the word can always heal you. I'm out.